Welcome into another edition of Cavs and Coffee. Jason Lloyd, Mikey McNuggets coming at you guys on a Wednesday afternoon. And Jason, after 4 straight losses, including 3 on the road to open up a West Coast road trip, the Cleveland Cavaliers have won back-to-back games, both by double digits, and seem to be getting a little sense of normalcy back as they enter the final 10 games of the regular season with a commanding lead in the Eastern Conference and all eyes focused on the playoffs. In today's show, we're going to recap that win over Portland. We're going to talk about what the Cavs' go-to thing is, and we'll see if we have any updates on the Donovan Mitchell injury following his night off last night in Portland. But we start with the win against the Blazers, Jason. 122-111 in favor of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And it was a performance from Darius Garland that a lot of people have been waiting to see.
Yeah, they played well last night. Last game of a long West Coast trip. I thought it was the schedule makers didn't do them any favors with the way that they set up this trip, because usually the trip ends in Utah. And I didn't even realize they had to go to Portland. I was talking to you after the show and I said, they're coming home here. No, they got to go to Portland. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like that's some BS to bring them east to Utah and then make them go all the way to the end of the world again to Portland to end the trip. So that really looks like a schedule loss, or it very easily could be. And then when you take Donovan out of the equation, even more so. But Darius played well. He shot it well. He looked comfortable running the offense with the ball in his hands and just give it to him and let him go. And Sam played great in Donovan's absence. Ty was Ty. Ty Jerome did the things that we've come to expect Ty to do. Portland played hard, pressured him defensively, but just missed a ton of shots. Missed a lot of, I thought were open good looks from 3, and they just didn't shoot it well. A lot of ISO out of the Blazers guards, a lot of one-on-one, and they didn't run much offense that I could tell. It was just a lot of dribble, shoot, and the Cavs took advantage of that. They controlled the entire game, start to finish, and it's a good win. Obviously it's not a successful trip overall, but to end it the way that they did, especially in that game when Portland's sort of fighting for its life and the Cavs really have nothing to play for, to come out and play as hard as they did and look as good as they did at times. That's a good win for them.
Yeah, that was kind of my big takeaway from it. Was this was a game that Portland needed. Portland is fighting and clawing to get into that final play-in spot. They're not a playoff team, but they could be in the play-in bracket, I guess you can call it.
Yeah.
If a couple of things break right, this was a game they had to win to sustain their pace with the Phoenix and the Dallases and the other teams that are in that hunt for the 10 seed, and they came out playing hard. And that first quarter was 33-33. In the last night of a West Coast road trip, Jason, how many times have we seen teams just pack it in? They finally get to go home. They finally get to sleep in their own beds. They get to see their kids, their wives, their girlfriends, their families, whatever. That's usually a scheduled loss. And last night, it was anything but that for the Cavs. Darius was awesome. You alluded to it, 11 and 19 from the floor. Only took 3 threes, which is a bit interesting.
Yeah.
Because Kenny's told us time after time this season, I want Darius shooting close to 10 threes a game. Well, his efficiency skyrocketed in the game that he only took 3 threes, was 1 of 3 from beyond the arc, but was super efficient. I believe he had 8 assists to only 1 turnover. Let me confirm that real quick.
Darius?
8 assists. He had 4 turnovers, but 8 assists. 4 turnovers. I was looking at someone else who only had 1 turnover, but I thought it was Darius Garland. That was Javonte Green, who doesn't count because he played 7 minutes. But Merrill was awesome. Mobley was awesome. 12 rebounds. He had 4 assists. Also had 4 blocks in the win, 21 points. And Ty Jerome filling in for Donovan Mitchell, Jason. How much of a luxury is it when you could have your best player, your potential first-team all-NBA guard sit out? So you play Ty Jerome a little extra bit. He didn't get the start, by the way. He went from playing 19 minutes a game, which is his average, to 21 minutes last night. Merrill did play well in his 30 minutes, but Jerome in 21 minutes drops a light 25, 2 and 3, a 9 of 15 from the floor, 4 or 5 from 3. I mean, he's been, in a way, their X factor all season because they're able to give Darius and Donovan rest without losing much production. Donovan averages 23.7 points a game. Ty gave you 25 in 21 minutes last night. He's been incredible.
It's absurd. It's absurd what Ty Jerome has done all year long. It's a credit to him. We've talked about it all year. He's one of the best stories in the NBA, and he did it again last night. And I thought Merrill played well, really shot it well, stepping in place of Donovan. And you mentioned Mobley. There was a few times where I was watching where it was apparent. We were talking the other day about, our team's going to start hunting switches on Evan. I said on the show, we'll find out in a couple of weeks, and we will. But man, when he is at the rim, you could just see Blazers players want no part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like shots that a lot of times NBA players are going to go up and they're going to take that shot. And instead they're pulling out, they're dribbling out, they're kicking it out. They want no part of Evan at the rim. And I don't blame him. He's really become, I don't care what anybody says, he has become an absolute defensive monster in this league.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And when Wendy said that, I heard the snippet. I didn't go back and listen to the full clip. So I went back and listened to the full clip because a lot of people online took it as a slight to Evan. And we talked about this a little on the show Monday, Jason. It's kind of a compliment to Evan. Now, hunting him obviously sounds bad on paper.
Yeah.
But compared to the alternative, which is what you just mentioned, having him be that free safety around the rim to block, to defend, to disrupt, to just basically muck up anything you get, to make guys, even when they beat their first guy off the dribble, have to think and wonder and figure out where the hell is Evan Mobley before I can put this layup up. I think that's more dangerous. So if you put him in the action, if you quote unquote chase that switch,
you know where he is.
You know exactly where he is, and you know exactly what you have to do to attack him. And you go back and you could look at Harden and DeRozan and how the Clippers and the Kings hunted those mismatches.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who else they're hunting mismatches with if DeRozan and Harden have the ball?
Who?
Every single player in basketball. I can tell you for a fact, there is not a single person in the NBA that James Harden believes can stay in front of him on the perimeter.
Yeah.
And DeMar DeRozan, for 38 years now, I feel like the dude's been playing since before I was born, has never been afraid to take a shot over anybody. It doesn't matter if it's Kawhi, if it's Ant Edwards, if it's Wemby, if it's Mobley. Those guys are elite offensive scorers for a reason. They're going to attack those mismatches, and I'll die on this hill. If you took what Wendy says as a slight to Evan Mobley, I think you're missing the big context of what they were actually getting at, which is, yes, Mobley can defend on the perimeter for sure, but he's elite at the rim, Jason. And to the game last night, Portland has Simons, Sharp, Scoot. Those guys are much better and much more efficient when they're attacking the rim, getting ahead of steam, going downhill. And I don't think it's a surprise that Portland, a team that doesn't shoot a ton of threes on the season, Jason, they're not a heavy three-point shooting team, took 52 of them last night. Cleveland only took 27 for what it's worth. And their guards, Simons, 1 of 10 from 3. Sharp, 1 of 5 from 3.
Yeah.
Scoot, 2 of 7 for 3. Advia, who also likes to get to the rim, 3 of 9, and Kamara was 2 of 9. You add all those up, you ain't beating many teams, and you're certainly not beating a team of the caliber of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, I mean, Portland missed a ton of free throws too. Like they just didn't shoot it well at all. I won't say they played hard. They turned the Cavs over a lot early. I thought that might keep them in the game. That might give them a chance just because the turnovers that they were forcing. And you wonder if the Cavs' legs would give out on them at some point, being at the end of this trip. But I mean, Portland, they got a long way to go, and they had a lot of good looks. They had a lot of open looks from 3, and they just couldn't knock them down.
All right, Jason, there's not a whole lot to get into from last night. I think we covered most of it. Good win for the Cavs, 2 in a row. They're back at home Thursday against the San Antonio Spurs. Jason, one fun little nugget I found. This was prior to last night's game, so I'm not 100% sure if it's accurate now. But on the season, the Cavs have the number 1 offensive rating in basketball. In March, they fall to 12th.
Yeah.
San Antonio is the number 1 offensive rating in the month of March, and they suck. So go figure. Take your pick. I like the Cavs back at home on Thursday, but no Wemby, no De'Aaron Fox for San Antonio, which takes a little bit of the star power and the juice out of what could have been a really fun matchup here at Rocket Arena.
Yeah. It's just good for them to get home. That's the longest they'll be gone now for the rest of the season. And they can really start to, it's coming. They can really start to shift into postseason mode. It'll be here before you know it.
All right, let's get into our next topic after a quick word from FanDuel. Guys, you know FanDuel is America's number 1 sportsbook, and March Madness is underway right now. There's no better place to bet on March Madness than with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. You can bet on over-unders, spreads, player props. You can even bet on who's going to cut down the net when it's all said and done. Just head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS to sign up today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and the number 1 place on the internet to bet March Madness. All right, Jason, I sent you a text yesterday with this topic. I also tweeted out this topic and got a ton of responses. So we're going to end this topic with some fan submissions. But when push comes to shove, whether it be a playoff series, late in the fourth quarter of a regular season game, in really any situation you want to take this, what is the Cavs thing? What do they do better than anyone or at their best? What do you think it is? It could be a player, a scheme. I told you had carte blanche, whatever that phrase is, to do whatever the hell you wanted or take this however you wanted. But the question is, what is the Cavs thing?
That's a good question. And I told you, I got to think about that. I didn't have a great answer off the top of my head. So I thought about it. I just kind of poked around in a couple of things. And I thought about it while I was watching the game last night. Number one, I still think it's a defensive identity. Anytime you have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, you can hang your head on defense. Now, they've been pushed around and out-rebounded at times, and that shouldn't happen. But just the defensive presence of those two guys and just the way they can get after teams and protect the rim, that, number one, to me, is one of the things that they can hang their hat on. And when you say that, like, who are they? What's their identity? It doesn't mean it's going to work every single night, right? But, like, everything is a calculated risk. Everything is playing the odds. And when I look at this team, that's number one for me, is they're going to protect the rim. And number two, they're going to get to the paint. Like, they're really good at getting to the paint. And then that's going to create so much. But they can get to the paint pretty much anytime they want, whether that's pick and roll, whether that's just taking your guy off the dribble, whatever it is. Donovan and Darius are going to be able to break down a defense and get to the rim or get to the lane. And then what happens after that? And this team is very creative. Once they get to the paint, for me, it's almost like turning the ignition switch. And it's like, okay, what's going to come next? Is it drive and kick? Is it drive, kick, swing? Is it pick and roll? And these are so good finishers. Like the Cavs, to me, I wanted to look this up and I didn't. The Cavs have to have some of the best finishers in the league off pick and rolls, like the roll man scoring, just because just the lobs. I mean, think about how many lobs you see of Jared and Evan completing, or Donovan and Darius finishing off pick and roll, whatever it is. And some of the actions that they can create. And this is such a much more imaginative offense than it was in the past, where they had such a hard time in the playoffs. They had such a hard time getting good looks for themselves. And that just, I mean, they still have to do it in the postseason, obviously, but they have really sort of ramped up the creativity of the offense with some of the screen games that they do. And the motion is just constant now, where before it just felt like it was stand around and wait for Donovan, and it was just dribble, shoot. So it just, but I guess for me, the ignition switch is getting to the paint, no matter how you do it.
Yep.
Once they get to the paint, everything starts to go off of that. And so, like, you need a bucket, playoff game, you're on the road, crowd's into it, you got to get a score. You're going to be able to get to the paint, home, away, it doesn't matter. And then, you're not going to make every shot, obviously, but you're just trying, again, it's a calculated risk. You're trying to give yourself the best odds. And I like this team's ability to create good looks for themselves. And then beyond that, you have to live with the results.
I like that answer. I looked up while you were talking team paint touches per game.
Mm-hmm.
The Cavs are 8th in the NBA, and they're off by a fraction. They could be up to like 4th.
I was going to say, I'm actually surprised they're 8th. I thought they'd be higher.
Yeah, Denver leads in total paint touches per game, but they play through Jokic in the post.
Yeah.
But in terms of teams that drive a ton, they're fraction of percentage points around. But according to NBA.com, they average 23.4 paint touches per game, which I hope I'm looking at the right thing, but it's tracking paint touches. I'm not sure what else is a better way to gauge that. But they're 8th, fraction of a point down from like I said, they're within one paint touch of being 4th. Yeah. So, it's all kind of jambalaya there. Yeah. Denver's the highest, mostly because they run through Jokic. And Jason, when I answer this question myself, I came to 2 different answers that I think I'm going to blend into one. So if I may, let me give you my 2 answers and I'll explain why I think they can kind of converge into one. But when I look at the Cavs, I think what makes them different than almost any team in basketball, what makes them special this season, is at any given time over a 48-minute game, They can have an elite all-star level ball handler / creator on the floor alongside a all-star caliber rim running, rim protecting big. For 48 minutes a game, you almost, barring foul trouble, never get a rest from either having either Donovan or Darius on the court and B, either Jarrett or Evan on the court. And the pressure that puts on a defense to never have a lull in the action and bar you there a lot of minutes where they're all together and or 2 or 3 of the 4 on the court together.
Yeah.
That is immensely difficult to deal with for any possession, rather less any 6-minute stretch, rather less any half of basketball, rather less all 48 minutes. That puts pressure on you to be almost perfectly intact and sound for an entire game. And we see teams, you can play great defense for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But can you sustain that for an entire quarter, a half, a game? It is incredibly difficult. So the ability to always have one of those 2 elite ball handlers and one of those 2 all-star caliber bigs on the court is kind of their trump card because there's never that lull. You even saw it last night against Portland. When the Blazers put in some of those backup guys and Advia and Sharp or Simons comes out, they just really struggle to generate good looks. The Cavs don't have those kind of lulls. The other part of it, Jason, and I'm going to get to where I'm getting to in a sec, is that I do believe they have 8 to 9 guys who can play at an incredibly high level. And when Donovan's out, you see Ty Jerome come in and score 25 points. In games where Donovan has played, but Darius has missed and Ty Jerome's seen an increase in minutes. He's averaging 21, 6, and 6 in those games, Jason. So my big picture answer is I think their flexibility and versatility.
Yeah.
Now with DeAndre Hunter, they can play one big and Hunter at the 4 and give you the spacing needed in a late game situation to execute. They can play both bigs like we saw against Oklahoma City and destroy you from using those 2 as the fulcrums of the offense. They can rely on Donovan or Darius. But Kenny Atkinson at his disposal now with the addition of DeAndre Hunter has the ability to mix and match to the opponent, not have to play what he thinks works best. And I don't think Kenny, with 10 games to go, really knows what his actual best 5-man closing lineup is yet, which on the one hand could be scary. On the other hand, could be an exciting challenge and an exciting feature and advantage for Cleveland to know that they can not have to be pigeonholed into one closing group. And they can adjust and utilize where their advantage is over the opponent as opposed to just who their proverbial, nope, bad job out of me. I said I'm not going to use proverbial anymore. I don't think I ever used it right in the history of my life. Instead of using what they think they have to use as a closing lineup. So big picture, there's a lot of nuance to it. I think their versatility and adaptability to the opponent is their trump card, is their hammer, is their go-to thing. But there's a lot of nuance in how you get there for that.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think their closing lineup is matchup dependent a lot of times. We're going to see that. I mean, the regular season doesn't matter, especially this team's so talented. It doesn't matter who you throw out there. But in the playoffs, I think it's very much going to depend on the opponent and who they're playing personnel-wise. But I do think we're going to see Jarrett on the bench for a lot of playoff moments when he's been out there in the past. And that's okay. You know, I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. But I think, and you're right, DeAndre, we've talked about it before, but the way Hunter has been able to unlock some lineups and some looks that they haven't been able to get to previously is really, to me, a game changer. When you can play 5 out now, that's a type of style that they never could before. When you can play 5 out now and still have rim presence, rim protection presence, that there's not a lot of teams in the league that could do that.
Yeah, and also with the closing lineups, the fact they've been so good in the clutch, I think, is partly because teams don't know which guy to load up on.
Yeah.
Some nights it's been Donovan, some nights it's been Darius. It's been Evan at times, and that goes back to the flexibility and the versatility that Kenny Atkinson has at his disposal. You don't know where this fulcrum or the head of the snake is going to be on any given defensive possession late in games. And if you don't know where to send the extra guy and where to help and where not to rotate off of, well, you're in a lot of trouble. And obviously, we can talk about the three-point shooting, Jason. They're the best three-point shooting team in the NBA this season. The bench has been a big part of their success. There's a lot of different reasons this Cavaliers team has been so good.
Yeah.
But come postseason time, I do think their ability to mix and match, to meet their opponent and take advantage of their opponent's weakness is going to be a crucial factor in what makes them such a hard out.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have anything else to add. I think you're right.
All right, let's go over. So I asked Twitter, by the way,
Yeah.
Jason, I took your name out of it, took your number, but I tweeted out the exact text I sent you.
Uh-huh.
What's the Cavs thing? And I got 12 answers. So I'm going to go through these. We'll run through them pretty quickly, but if you want to add anything to it, feel free to add anything to it. Some of the answers were pretty good, and we got a wide range, which, by the way, the fact that we got such a wide range, you and I had slightly different answers. We got 5 or 6 different ones on Twitter. It's a good thing if you don't necessarily have one defined. For the 76ers a couple of years ago, it was a James Harden and Embiid pick and roll. Like, that was their thing. That was their trump card. And yes, it was damn near unstoppable, but you knew what it was. The fact the Cavs you can make a legitimate case for 4 or 5 of these, I think, is a pretty good thing for Cleveland. But first one comes from Rackjack24, who said, if we're talking late game execution, without going into too much X's and O's and nerding out like I like to do, no matter what the numbers say, we have Donovan Mitchell and I have faith in him in the clutch, which in the playoffs has proven more true than not quite a bit. So Donovan is another way, another trump card, you could say. I'm not sure if he's the best guy in a series against Boston or OKC, but outside of those 2 teams, in terms of the legit contenders, I think Donovan's as good as any piece they got.
Yeah. I mean, I don't put Donovan quite in the category of some of the game's elite. It's funny because there will be series where the Cavs don't have the best player on the floor, but they may have they may have 3 through 7. You know what I mean? And is that better than 1 and 2? We'll find out in Boston.
All right, next one comes from my guy Luca over at Real Cavs Fans, who says their bench, it's the secret weapon that extends leads when the starters rotate in and out and furthers the cushion for the starters. Cavs are currently 8th in bench points and 3rd in bench minutes per game, which kind of goes back to the depth versatility part of it, that they can bring in guys, Jerome, Hunter, Wade, whoever, and not really see a big drop off in play, which most teams can't do. So
yeah.
Gabby says Reggie the dog. Great answer, Gabby. Shout out to Gabby for chiming in on this one. The Cleveland dude says all 3 of their stars can get to the basket off the dribble now. Jason, that was to your point.
Yeah.
Liddy Burner says defense and elite shooting. When we go on our Cavalanches, it's when we lock in on defense, string stops together, and we hit opponents with a barrage of threes with elite shot making.
Okay.
Adam Eaton says the Cavs thing is 4 all-stars. They always have 1 all-star guard and 1 all-star big. So there's never any lulls, combined with the cohesion this group has, accentuating their strengths and covering up for their weaknesses.
That speaks to your answer.
That's kind of what I said. Yep, Adam, great answer there. Greasy V says the pass to assist ratio is big in my opinion. When they're hot, they pass with effect and efficiency. Real quick, that's a good point. I'm not sure what the assist to turnover ratio is, Jason. But for a team as good as Cleveland, to be as unselfish as they are, I think the 2 go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've given them truly enough credit this season for how unselfish top to bottom they have been. And it never feels like, okay, let me rephrase that. Ty Jerome sometimes feels like he does, and I love when he does. But Ty Jerome sometimes goes out there and is like, I'm getting mine. Which, by the way, Ty, you have earned the right to. I have no issue with it. I don't say that as a slight. I say that as a continue to do what you're doing. Outside of Ty at times, it doesn't feel like anyone's ever trying to hunt shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing. I mean,
yeah,
it makes it hard to guard when you're like that.
Yeah. And, I'll just go back to what I said earlier. It's amazing I hesitate to say this because I think JB did a ton of good things when he was here, and we talked about him at length. I defended him multiple times on the show. But when you hold up, if you played clips of last year's offense and this year's offense side by side, it's remarkable that with almost the same personnel, obviously Evan looks like a completely different player. Ty wasn't here. Well, he was here, but he wasn't on the floor last year. But just the actions, just the screen actions, the ghost screens that Donovan moves with, the guard pick and rolls that they run, there's just constant movement that didn't exist previously. And I mean, you got to give Kenny all the credit for that, for sort of revamping the entire offense. And for I'd like to sit down with him and find out, like, I don't remember Brooklyn back in the day. Certainly they didn't have the talent that this Cavs team has, but and maybe that was it. I just wonder how much of this did he pick up from Steve at Golden State, and how much of this did he have in his bag all along? I don't know. I don't have the answer to it, but just the way that they move on the offensive end, it looks like, I mean, this even, I know I mentioned a lot going back to when the Cavs won the championship, just because it feels like we're there again, right? Like we're at that level again, and this is a team that has a chance to win it. But that was, a lot of times it was just LeBron, and it's LeBron pounding the basketball for 10 seconds and then getting to the lane and then kicking to a shooter, and you better make the shot. And that was the offense. And if you made the shot, you made a lot of money in your life, and you got the trust of 23. And if you did make the shot, well, you might be off the team next year. But it wasn't this type of motion type of offense and this much movement. And like these guys have defenses spinning their wheels,
rambling.
Yeah. And I now that we've seen it for the entire year, now that we're at the end of March, I'm really appreciating just how good they are at creating great looks for themselves with ball movement and with playing for each other and with some of the screen games that they do.
One of the things I want to ask Kenny after the season, hopefully after they win a championship, is I want to see with a little more detail what they consider a good shot versus a great shot versus a bad shot, because Kenny always talks about the shot quality.
Yeah.
And what I think may be a good shot for Cleveland maybe doesn't qualify in their books. So what I think may not be a good shot for Cleveland, they may value as a good shot. So I'm really curious how they particularly value and evaluate what is a good versus a bad shot. He won't tell us during the season, but maybe that could be an off-season project for you and I, Jason.
Yeah.
Kind of figure out how they track that kind of information. So I don't know. I don't want to say, hey, they're the top 3 teams in the league in shot quality, because I don't know how to judge that versus what they're actually looking at. But I can tell you from watching a lot of basketball, not just Cleveland, but I watch a ton of the NBA because I love basketball. And we've said this before. We've texted about it privately. They never struggle to get good looks. Even when the Cavs aren't making shots, they're getting good looks. They had a whole breakdown on Donovan Mitchell from the game against Phoenix, where he went 2 of 18 from the floor. Of those 18 shot attempts, Jason, I tracked 9 as good looks and 4 as okay. There's only 5 bad shots out of the bunch. And he was just short, just missed shots. The Cavs have done an incredible job this year of generating good looks. We talked about it last week. When they get a foot in the paint, it forces the defense to rotate, and there's no better team in basketball than attacking rotations, in my opinion, than the Cavaliers, which is what makes them such a dangerous offense. It's not that they can't be stopped in their first action, but can you stop them in their second and third actions, which a lot of teams don't want to do. We got 3 more of these, Jason, here to rip through. DJ says the X factor is Evan Mobley. Let's Go Cavs says relying on depth and using ball movement to exhaust the defense, which goes back to what we just talked about. Crofty says their defense has to be locked in to lead to better offensive sets. Off-ball motion with ball movement is critical. And last but not least, Paul Clayton says ball movement and defense, putting their foot on the throats of other teams early is what made them dominant. That's another good point, Jason. And then we get to the last part of our show here. They're not just beating teams, they're beating the crap out of teams. And I know it sounds silly, but that's a skill. Not letting teams hang around is a skill.
Yeah.
And I think Boston leads the NBA in 20-point leads blown this season. I'm struggling to think of a time. And they're a good team, but they like to play with their food. They blew a 20-point lead to Cleveland. Like we've
Team
talked
ADD.
about that. Yeah. The fact that Cleveland hasn't had many of those games, if any, I'm trying to think of a time where they blew a gigantic lead.
No, I mean, they've only lost 1 game, right? That they led going into the 4th quarter.
And that game was tied. It wasn't even a straight up. No, they were up 2. You're right. They lose 1. But yeah, like they close out games incredibly well. And that's a skill in its own right that probably doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying, there was a couple early season stats I was trying to look up. I can't find them. Remember going back like 10, 15 games in, was it net rating? I'm just trying to think of what, like there was there was a couple numbers that like popped because all the other teams that did it went to the finals or won championships.
So before the first Thunder game, I did that thread of like why this is the best regular season matchup we've seen in a long, long time. And both the Thunder and the Cavs up until January 8th had a top 4 net rating in the history of the NBA. Like, not just this year, but the history of the league. The Cavs had the number 1 offensive rating from a majority of the season, not just in the NBA, but in the history of the NBA, ahead of Boston's number 1 offensive rating ever last season. And teams that win like 65 games or teams that have multiple 15-game win streaks in the same season have like 70% of the time reached the finals and like 65% of the time won the finals. Like it's really, really hard to do what the Cavs have done this season. And it takes a really good team to do that. So it makes sense that those teams have typically succeeded at the highest of levels.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple other stats. I can't find them now. But it's funny because even that early, even after like 10 or 12 games, there was some markers out there that only teams had accomplished that had, and it was like, it was, I mean, now we can look back and say, yeah, it's validation. At the time, you're like, okay, are we getting ahead of ourselves here, or is there really something here? But no, there's something to it, man. I think there was some stuff with net rating that was, I think it was net rating that was just, it was eye popping.
Yeah. We'll get to the last part of our show here. Quick reminder, we are on regular 11 to 1 o'clock. We have Greg Cassell coming on the show today, Jason, one of the godfathers of film breakdowns of NFL draft prospects. We'll talk a little Cavs. We'll talk a little guards. We'll talk a little Browns. So make sure you guys tune in. The panel today, Earl the Pearl, G. Bush, and Dustin Fox. So it should be a fun show. And we'll see you guys here in about 2.5 hours. All right, Jason, to wrap it up real quick, Donovan did not play last night. They listed him as injury management. This should take 2 minutes because I think we're on the same page here, but I'll start. If Donovan's even slightly hurt, I'd sit him for a week.
Yeah.
If he's not, let him come back, and I'd still sit him for a week.
Might sit him for a week anyway.
I have the Cavs, once again, have a commanding lead in the East. They've essentially locked in the 1 seed. I would sit him for a week. I need Donovan at his peak of his powers, at 100%, as healthy as he humanly possibly can be for a playoff push. So if that means sit him for a couple games so he can play the last 5 and ramp up for the playoffs, so be it. But I am in no pressure and no rush and no situation where if he's not 100%, I'm risking it to play Donovan Mitchell until he's 100% ready.
Totally with you. If you go back and look at the second half last season, he had the knee thing. I talked to him about it and it bothered him all through, really from the All-Star break on. I think it was the last game prior to the All-Star break throughout the second half. And if you remember, he didn't play well at the start of that Orlando series. Like, nobody really talks about it now, but he was not good those first couple of games of that Magic series. And then he obviously had the 50-point game when they lost, and then he hurt his calf. So he had a couple good ones, and he had a couple that weren't so good early on. And you wonder how much of that was the knee. You wonder if the knee led to the calf at all, compensating for one, leading to the other. You know, I don't know. But you certainly don't want to go through that again, because this team was eliminated in the second round last year. And obviously there's a lot of expectations now to carry this a lot further. And I've said it before, you know, I've talked to players and executives who've been part of finals runs, and it is a war of attrition. And the more time you can get off your feet, the better. And that starts now. Like that counts now too. So I have no issue, even if he's healthy, just keep him off his feet. And that, not just him, that's other guys too. Give Darius some breaks here and there. There's nothing left to play for in the regular season. You want to keep guys in rhythm, but at the same time, you want to make sure that they're healthy and rested and ready to go. So if they want to shut down Donovan, I would probably sit him the last game too. Certainly there's nothing left to play for that last game. If you want to give him a few games before that, fine. But if he wants a week, even if he doesn't want a week, I don't see any harm in trying to avoid what you had last year.
There's one thing I have to check real quick, Jason. How many games has Donovan played this season? He has played. He's already played 65 games. So he's qualified for all the NBA
for all that stuff.
So yeah, if he plays one more game, if he plays 0 more games, he can still be an All-NBA guy. So he's already reached that threshold.
Yeah.
I am in no rush. Like I said, I don't think he's that hurt, if hurt at all. He played in the back-to-back the other day, which if he was hurt, I can't imagine Cleveland would play him in a back-to-back. So I'm going to trust their actions over what the injury report says that very well could have been just load management last night. But he ain't playing again if I'm Cleveland until 3-4 games left. Just because I know if we want to reach the pinnacle of where we think we can get, we need Donovan at his peak. And if anything can hinder him from now to getting to that point, it's not worth the risk. It's all about risk management, as you mentioned before. And to me, you need 100% Donovan. So Donovan, take your time, enjoy your wine, get your ice baths, get your rehab, see your family, whatever you got to do, because come playoff time, I need you to lock in and give us 120%. Jason, last point, all yours.
No, I was going to say, let's get out of here. So let's get out of here.
That's going to wrap it up for a Ultimate Cavs and Coffee on a Wednesday morning following a Cleveland 122-111 win over the Blazers. They are back home Thursday to take on the Wemby and Foxless Spurs. For Jason Lloyd, I'm Mikey McNuggets. We'll see you later. Peace.